Hello guys. So if the reason I'm holding this microphone instead of it being on this arm is because the arm just broke on me. But I've done all my lighting, I've made my coffee, I've set everything up, and I'm just determined to do this podcast. So, bear with me, please guys, while I hold my new microphone. I suppose this is probably AuroraCast episode 12, and it probably should have been AuroraCast episode 0, because the idea really is that I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight into why I started this podcast, how it's been going, I suppose a little bit of reflection, and then give you some ideas as to where I want it to go. So it probably won't be the longest episode, firstly because we are currently experiencing a heat wave in the UK, and for my American friends, of which I know there are many, our homes in the UK are not built to deal with such heat. So I think today it's currently 34 degrees, it's been hotter, it's been about 38. I am currently in a room full of lights with the window shut, the fan off, and the door closed, and it is damn hot. Like, I am warm, I feel like I'm sort of, this to me, it seems like I'm almost warmer than I was in kind of like LA. I went to LA in 2015, and being of the Scots, Welsh, the British complexion, if you want, that Celtic blood. I adapted pretty damn soon after arriving in Los Angeles, and I got my shorts on, I got my hat on, and I was fine. I was loving life. But yeah, when I arrived, walking around Venice Beach, damn, I was hot. But this is that's a drier heat as well, man. In LA, like in London, it's a really kind of wet, like muggy. It's not a nice. I suppose all the sea around us on this island. I don't know. Damn, it's warm. So that's the first reason this probably won't be too much of a long conversation, because I might melt, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So I'm trying to just not, I'm grabbing my coffee, so I'm trying to. Oh, you're drinking coffee in the heat as well. Good idea there, Mike. Good idea. So yeah, the podcast. I suppose it started really because of the COVID-19 lockdown. And I'd had some ideas for some kind of like interviewee type stuff I wanted to do with various people I've worked with. And I suppose my character, I'm quite a chatty kind of outgoing guy, but I spent a long time in the studio, and I suppose being quiet about my music to a point. I did my YouTube channel, and obviously I'd done my releases and I'd done my films and things like that, but I didn't really... when I go to my day job or things like that, I don't tend to really talk too much about my music. I didn't kind of like, I went to a few networking events here and there, but it's been quite quiet, I suppose, to a point. And the podcast was a way for me to get online, get on air, and kind of start talking to people and having a kind of real conversation about how other people started their creative journey and where they're currently at, where they're going, the experiences they've gone through. And it's been quite rewarding, both for me and I think for them. It's nice to give people a platform to talk, especially during this lockdown where people, I suppose, people have dealt with it in lots of different ways, haven't they? It's been quite it's been a very strange time. I don't think anyone saw this coming or expected this to be a thing. And people, some people I spoke to have been kind of like, almost just kicking back and, sitting at home, not really doing much, maybe taking some time out where they've been just busy for months and months and years on end. Other people have started businesses. Some people are kind of like in the film world have started looking at pre-production and planning projects and been perhaps a little bit down that they're not in production. And obviously there's a hugely negative. I mean, obviously I'm talking about this in terms of work, I suppose, and how it's been interfering with people in their day to day rather than kind of focusing on the health side of it, because that's a whole other conversation which will come up with some of my guests in the future. But I think it's been strange. Some people have started businesses. Some people are kind of like watching people adapt during their business has been quite interesting. Seeing the new things that people start doing. Damn, this microphone's heavy. Holding a broadcast microphone, that's why their arm broke, because it can't hold the weight. I need to get a stronger arm. Anyway. So yeah, that was kind of why I started the podcast. It was, myself, I was locked down. Everybody else was locked down, the whole damn world. And I thought, well, I wanted to do some interview stuff for the kind of just to showcase some of the artists that I've been working with through the Aurora Eclipse label side. And get them out on film and kind of like, how did you start, playing the sax or playing the bass or playing the guitar, playing the drums or, whatever else. That was like an idea I had to do, that I wanted to do in the studio when we were recording some stuff with Skyquaker, and then Rick from Iceni, or AKA Hrothgar. I wanted to get him involved as well. He's yet to come on the podcast. We need to sort that out, but that's in the works. So that was the idea, and then it kind of spread to kind of like filmmakers, producers. We've had boom operators on, all sorts of stuff. Really, I don't think it needs to be just about music. We've had radio show hosts, we've had podcast hosts, we've had all sorts on the podcast so far, and I think it will. I suppose music's the core, but I'm interested in some of the wider conversations as well around that. I'm really sorry if this is like sounding. I'm trying to do this as lightly as possible so that it doesn't come through on the recording, but I need to change hands. I've been really happy with it. It's been great for me, and kind of like I think it suits my personality. At the moment, I'm going through. I just bought some new gear, so this microphone's new. I've got the Zoom H6 recorder. I've got some lighting, things like that, and I've kind of trying to change I'm currently sitting in the APL studio now, so the idea is that I'll probably put my guest on the other side of this sofa. And then we'll set up a couple of cameras. I need to get a couple of boom arms. I've bought some kind of like nice cinematic background type stuff to go on the wall behind me. So we get rid of these kind of like magnolia horrible walls. Vinyl there, big shout out to Andrea Ratti, who was on the podcast. That's my latest music project, if you like. Was a film for a score for a short film called Fragments. Obviously the festivals are still shut in terms of film, but I think Andrea is working to try and sort that out now the country and everything's starting to kind of open up, which is awesome. So that's been really cool. Projects have been happening and things have been moving on. At the moment, I'm really kind of just getting myself into this podcast and focusing on that. I've got a couple of business meetings coming up for myself personally this afternoon to do with some kind of like spiritual kind of relaxation, almost yoga style music. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be slightly different from the whole hectic, horror-y kind of film stuff I've been doing. Even though Fragments had some relaxing parts in it. But the story itself was a little bit on the perhaps the down, or the I wouldn't say it was harrowing, but you should check out Fragments when it comes out. It's got that Black Mirror style edge. I suppose just trying to keep the conversation on podcasts, because that's what I wanted this episode to be. Excuse me while I have a sip of coffee. Coffee's definitely a problem for me. I think I need to. I think I have an addiction to coffee. I really do. Podcasts. They're a weird thing because I know they've been around for yonks. I know that I've heard the term podcast many a times. I know people are kind of avid listeners on the trains, on the buses, when they're traveling to work, or just in the evenings when they're cooking. And there's that whole conversation around the phenomena of, people can now almost recover their lost time, if you like, whereas there was perhaps downtime in the past. We're able to now get some of that time back through listening to podcasts. So you can educate yourself, you can laugh, you can find out what people have been doing, you can get people's perspectives while you're kind of cooking or while you're driving. And I suppose the audiobook thing comes into that as well. I am a huge reader of Audible. When I get time, I love just throwing that on when I'm driving, or if I've got a little bit of downtime in the evening. So I suppose podcasts move into that sphere. People are doing interviews now, or people are, putting out conversations and putting out opinions through their podcast, and it's really cool. So I was a bit of a later adopter, I suppose, of them. While I was aware they existed, I never really tuned in, and I don't know why, to be honest, because I've been going through a lot of Joe Rogan stuff, and then because I like the long format. I think if you're having I don't really think that in like 20 minutes or half an hour you can really get a perspective of what someone's about. I think once you start hitting that hour and a half, I suppose it's like recording a vocalist or recording a musician. If you just got someone into the studio, and yeah, of course you've got really good players who are absolutely like the top, the kings of their craft, if you like. But to me, if you if you get a singer into the studio, just mic him or her up and say go. You've got 20 minutes. I don't feel like you get the best performance out of them. I've had kind of sessions booked before with vocalists where you set them up, you get them going, you've got a bit of a deadline or a time limit to kind of adhere to and stick to. And you kind of, as the sessions kind of come into a wrap, and that's just been the way it's worked, they're starting to get their best performances, and it's almost like, can I book you again because I want to redo these first lines? So I think that conversation kind of comes into the podcast world as well, where, if you get someone on for sort of 20 minutes or half an hour, to me, it's just not enough time to really get into their soul, really understand what they're about, really kind of figure out where they're going, their experiences and what they're all about. Once you hit that kind of hour mark, hour and a half, 2 hours, to me, you really start to build that rapport with that person, and really start to understand what their journey's been and what they're all about. So I like the long format, and I'm starting to go that way. 2.5 hours is around about the max that I've done so far. But I don't mind pushing that to 3 hours. I feel like the 2 to 3 hour mark is the way forward. Just to break through that. I mean, I said an hour before you start getting into it. It's probably more like 30 minutes. I found most podcasts I've done, or even just conversations in pubs or restaurants or when you first meet people, it's normally that 20-minute mark. I think that you kind of, you've really broken down any barriers that might have been there, and people are then starting to have kind of honest conversations. That's my take on podcasts, and I've kind of through Rogan and through various other podcasts, I found tons of people who interest me. Perhaps musicians I didn't know, or comedians I didn't know of, or whoever. I just didn't know who people kind of were. I think there's a H3 podcast people tell me to listen to as well. I found one recently which talks about folklore. I'm quite into my kind of like my history and my folklore, basically history. Among different places in the world. So that's been really cool to listen to that of an evening, and they're quite short as well. They're kind of like half an hour, 40 minutes, just telling you about folklore from different parts of the world, and it touches on some culture. Just peering down at my Zoom. Yep, all looks good. So, I think it's kind of... it's been an interesting thing for me to discover, and I'm getting quite into it. What do you guys think about the whole video versus audio? Obviously, the audio version, of course, as I've said, in terms of listening in the kitchen or listening in the car, or getting back that time in terms of your listening to the audio. But what are we thinking about video versions? Because to me, I like having the video counterpart. I quite like sitting down as well when I've got the time in the evening and watching people's reactions, people talking. To me, that's a full conversation. What is it? 12% is just speech. And everything that surrounds that, I think, is important as well. So I'm trying to build a way I can do this in person. Given the nature of AuroraCast, it's probably not going to be possible to, start flying people in from America, or start flying people in from from Australia. Not yet, anyway. At some point, if I can do that, I will, and that will be really cool. But yeah, I'm going to need to use the internet. There's no two ways about that. The internet's going to be a thing that needs to happen. So. Obviously a lot of them are going to be still through the Skype, the Zoom, perhaps in the format that you've seen. I might build on trying to capture a full screen, so that I can switch between me and the guest and maybe have some cut-offs in the corner. At the moment it's been the kind of me and the guest and then the Aurora background, which is cool. But I feel like it might be more engaging if I can muck around with some camera angling and things like that. As for this format, I think a couple of cameras, a little bit of a mixer, so I can just on the fly mix between the cameras, which I'm looking at investing in now. Obviously, I've just got the Zoom H6, which this is the first test of how that's going to look, and a couple of new broadcast mics, so that's cool. So I need some new boom arms. I'm thinking about getting some kind of like tables that I can put around so people can put their drink, or like right now I'm trying to drink my coffee and it's just resting on the damn couch because I don't want to put it near the Zoom and I've got nowhere to put it. So I need to look at that. Like I say, I've got some backdrops coming to try and get a little bit more interest on this white wall. So yeah, I'm going to try and push that so that anyone who's in this country who's near me can who can get to me will do it face to face properly, and anyone who can't, then we'll just continue doing it online. Coffee time. So yeah, I think I've hit my heat threshold in this room. So like I say, today was never supposed to be a long episode. I just wanted it to be a little bit of a slight roundup, I suppose, of the first few episodes, test out some of this gear and see how it worked, and just check in with you guys on a bit more of a solo one-to-one basis. Please do subscribe to the Aurora Eclipse Productions YouTube channel, where this podcast hosted in the video version. I've also done a Eclipse channel to try and break down some of the conversations I've had. Some people perhaps who might just be starting their careers, you're not perhaps as well known. People aren't necessarily going to search directly for their name, but the conversations I've had are just incredible. And I think by trying to chop the conversations down and upload clips or parts of chats, you may then discover that person. That's why I've done the Clips channel. And obviously, a big shout out to the Droplet Network for putting out the audio version and looking after the audio side of this podcast. Please do rate the podcast on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts. That would really help me out. Share it. And if you want to come on AuroraCast, please get in touch with me. You can do so probably via my website. Just go to michaelwbell.co.uk and you'll find contacts on there, or hit me up on Twitter at mwbellmusic. And of course, if you want to support my work, all this equipment has not been cheap. You can go to Patreon at www.patreon.com/mwbellmusic. Any contribution will really, really help me out to continue building on the quality and, putting more and more time into the things I do. So, thanks very much, guys, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.